Test. All right, I think we're there. Okay, I think we're there. I need to quickly unmute Christian, see if he's there. G'day, Christian, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Oh, g'day, mate. How you going?
Yeah, good yourself.
Yeah, getting there, mate. Getting there. It's Wednesday, which means it's PowerShell 101 with Michael and Christian. It's our
Yeah,
last
working
one.
remotely this month. Ah, it's been a long road.
It's been a long road. I actually do think you've kind of did learn a little. You've learned a bit and you've taken a bit home from PowerShell. So
I'd say more than a bit.
yeah, I think it's definitely a really cool outcome, especially over the series, we've seen a significant a significant change in terms of just even understanding how it goes. G'day, Glenn. It's good to see ya. PowerShell with Michael and Christian is getting changed. So I am going to be moving PowerShell training as per se to Saturday. So Saturday mornings, which will be probably at 7 o'clock. It will be for you in WA. Basically, it'll be PowerShell 101 live. So basically, I think I've got about 20 guys. So we're just going to have 20 guys on. We're going to go through PowerShell. I've got a bit of a curriculum, so it's a bit of an introduction on Saturday, which is going to be really cool. A little bit nervous because obviously I've got a virtual class of 20 running over Discord. See how this is going to go. No, that'll be 7 a.m. WA time. So I'm thinking about you, mate. It's 9 a.m. Brisbane time, Australian Eastern Standard. So yeah. What else has been happening? PS Summit talks. Thanks, Glenn, man. I really appreciate your effort. I'm talking to Wayne at the moment with regards to the the three tenets. I also had a chat with Thomas, and he basically said, yeah, condense that two-part 90-minute talk into just a single talk. And I've been talking to Wayne, the guy actually we kind of did it together. So I'm going to see if I've kind of approached him because I kind of do want both of us there because um, there's a lot of things that I might miss that I think he's going to be able to provide input in, and vice versa. So it's actually going to be like if that's provided if the talk gets accepted, but I need to actually find out whether he's on board with that first before I can submit it. So yeah, that's something there. But yeah, how you going, Christian?
Yeah, pretty good. It's just been working through all the tape stuff. We've
Hmm.
got holidays starting, well, essentially Friday because, yeah, that's the last day for the term.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's absolutely crazy. And then then basically you're pretty much done. Like in terms of um, like then you've got one more term, and then that's basically it. You graduate.
Yeah, and that term is only 8 weeks, which will be ridiculously short.
Yeah.
In that time frame, we
Yep.
have to get 5 or 6 assessments.
Yep.
That is assignments plus a quiz for each subject as well.
Yep. I remember when I had that, and basically what I did was I actually Google calendared it, and created a schedule. And with that schedule, I basically said this week I'm working this assignment this week. And yeah, you had about five. And I remember I pretty much worked it out, and I did because they were like you had to write a report which was like 300 words. And I pretty much smashed out all my assignments. And the only reason why I was hanging around was obviously for the exams. And then once I finished the exams and I passed them all, I was done. Like I was done I think I was done 2 weeks before everyone else. And then basically, like, well, why are you still here? And I'm like, well, my computer's not good enough to run like Command and Conquer Generals, so and SWAT 4.
Yeah, there's been a bit of that. One of the other guys, he's been playing Diablo in his downtime.
Yep, yep.
We've been watching some of the Expanse on the Wednesday afternoons.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, it's just filling up the tutorial sessions with something else because it's all fairly straightforward. We kind of know what we're doing.
That's exactly right. The more, yeah, then you kind of, yeah. G'day Shane, how you going, mate? How's DBA life? Yeah, there's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to on Saturday is I think there was a lot of interest. I actually think I've lost a few people because the Discord link expired, and I'm like,
You can set it to permanent.
yeah, I know, but I really stuffed that one up. So I was looking at the stats, and there was about I had 20 people jump in, so they still have to sign up and things like that. Um, so I'm thinking, yeah, I think some people were just like, nah, I can't be bothered, which is fine. Like they can just jump in through the streams and things like that. But yeah, um, one of the things I was actually want to have a chat with you regarding, and actually Glenn as well, if you guys are interested, was it really depends on how bad oh sorry, how bad, but one of the things I really want to do in these sessions is that basically to have like in the Discord channel like a breakout area, so that basically a person can, drop out of channel and go chat to a helper. So if they have a question or they have, something that doesn't it so it doesn't impact the presentation, so the presenter can continue to present. And also I'm looking for speakers because that's one of the things I don't particularly want to present. Like I've got 2 speakers lined up, but yeah, so that's on testing and DSC. So, but the whole premise is that basically I want to be able to like have like a helper channel, so basically people can kind of jump in and ask questions, or like, so it's just a lot more of an active attempt. So yeah, it's more of a classroom environment as per se. But DBA Life, trying to let people do what they want, end up saying no because it's dumb and dead. Every security guy's answer is no. That's if you're a security engineer, the only word you need to know is no.
Well, that's what we've been covering in security
Yeah.
class. There's
How to say
zero
no.
trust. Yeah. I need to access C drive. No, you can't. We don't trust you enough.
It's like, but I promise I'll be good. No. No, actually, just go sit in the corner. Don't even touch a computer. Don't even
Yeah.
Don't even look at that power cable. So anyway, yeah. Anyway, so fire truck. No, heck no, no. Did I say no? Okay. How about nah? So today what we're going to be working with is PowerShell modules and code architecture. So we're going to talk a little bit about PowerShell modules. We are going to cover a little bit about PowerShell snap-ins, just as a bit of a kind of a backtrack, because I kind of do think I need to give you a bit of a lesson on why snap-ins exist, and then you're going to see why is add PS snap-in. So what we're going to do is going to focus on the screen, and I've got 2 links there, which you obviously got in VS Live. Obviously my main screen can't see all that, so we'll just kind of, I'll just shrink. How can I shrink this? How do you shrink the side panel?
What, the one on the left?
I just did
Yeah,
it
you
terribly. I just did it that way.
tap.
Okay, so I quickly wanted to, yeah, so initially what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about what PowerShell modules, things like that. So I'm going to be only focusing on one type today, just because we'll be, like, to be honest, we're going to be here all day, but it's still worth noting. These links, I'm literally just going to open up and go through with you, but they're really, really important to understand the concepts. We're actually going to do some demos so we can actually see the differences between a compiled one and just a normal script-based one. So what we've got here, let's just go open up this first link. So you can go ahead and open that link, and then it's going to take me to some other unwieldy website. I would laugh so much if my content filter came back and it said it was sexually explicit. I would laugh so much.
Well, these things do happen from time to time.
By the way, if you want to take a shortcut, just press Control and click. So there's a shortcut for you.
Yeah, that was, I don't know what happened there.
Okay, all good, all good. Okay, so this is a really good Technic article. This is the Technic article I used to actually get my head around what PowerShell modules were. So I'm going to kind of just give you the lowdown in terms of the different types of file names, so the things that you kind of need to look for. Realistically, they're going to be your what we call PSM, PSM1, which is abbreviated for PowerShell module, or a PSD, the PSD1, sorry. So basically, it really PowerShell modules can come in 4 flavors. So they can come in as what we call a script module, so the first flavor. So they're basically a script module is just PowerShell code. A lot of your PowerShell code is just script module. Even a lot of Microsoft code's PowerShell. Like there's nothing wrong with it, but ideally, it's just PowerShell. Like what you're writing there is an advanced function that basically is being treated as a commandlet, and that basically commandlet will have that function will have all the benefits. So it has that parameter sets. How we work with parameter sets. It would have, all the different types of streams. So you've got write warning, write error, write information, write verbose, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's literally just that. You have binary modules. Binary modules are basically compiled C# .NET DLLs. So basically, they're the more predominant. I'll say predominant. Yeah, they're more of the predominant way of that you'd basically have your PowerShell modules, so that they're just compiled C# code. Most of it will be as a compiled module. So yeah, the DLLs. So we're going to actually see some demos of DLLs. So I've actually got it's pretty easy to go find them because you can just use PowerShell to go fetch. The next one you have is manifests. So manifests are basically they describe the module. They're more really used in conjunction with the binary. So basically they're more they describe its components. So they're more along the lines of they're a module as per se, but basically they really are more like they're like a helper file really, but they're really predominantly used for your binary modules. So basically you would have a module manifest, which would then basically reference your binary module. So it's just really configuration. That's probably the best way to describe it. It's just a bit of configuration, and it's clear text, so you can actually write your own. You can write your own. Obviously you can see there's how to write a PowerShell module. So we're going to be working with the first one, second, and third one, but not really. The final one, which I kind of actually was thinking about this the other day when it came to unit testing. And this is actually something that I think is really new. Dynamic modules would actually be really handy in unit testing if you needed to mock a module that you didn't want to load the module. So that was something that I thought about the other day. Off topic. Anyway, so dynamic modules are basically there's no state. It's basically just a module. You're pretty much just creating a module in PowerShell. It's a bit like creating a function and then just loading that function in. It's not really a module as per se, but it's basically used for it's just dynamically used for different things. They're short-lived, so they're not really. Yeah, I haven't really seen them in production. I haven't really been seeing them used. If you guys are watching this in the stream and you have seen it, let me know because it's always interesting to see its use cases. I did kind of like I mentioned before, I do think a good use case for this would be in unit testing because basically you could mock a module without actually having to load that module. So for example, if you've got a third-party module, let's say like DBA tools, you could actually mock DBA tools and then you wouldn't have to wait for the module to load, which means it improves your unit testing. So that actually would be a really good benefit, for example, with that. So look at me talking unit testing. So like I said, g'day Anthony. So like I said, module manifests are basically are characterized by a PSD1. Actually, it's not PSD, it's PSD1. And then basically, yeah, and then you obviously it would reference different things. Now, one of the things that there's different ways that you can basically structure your module. Just traditionally speaking, traditionally speaking, sorry, script modules are structured. They usually follow a specific directory structure. So you have like a public and private directory. I'm not gonna talk about Plaster because Plaster, what Plaster is basically a way that you can automatically build your modules. So it's more for your continuous integration and delivery. So basically, you can bring in a whole bunch of things, build your module, and then package it out. So that's actually a really cool method of packaging your modules. We're not going to talk about that. So if anyone mentions Plaster, we're just going to kind of hang that off to the side for the time being. But basically, what usually you have is a specific directory structure, and then within that. So for example, you have your public directory, and your public directory usually contains your scripts, your advanced functions that would contain that would act as your commandlets. In your private directory, you might have supporting functions and classes and scripts and things like that that basically do other things. So traditionally as well, you might have a help file, and you know how in PowerShell, did I talk about commenting in PowerShell?
Um,
I don't think I did.
no.
Okay, so one of the things you can do in PowerShell is that you can actually, so when you do a get help, so you add you do a get help on a command or a function, you can actually add in your own functions, you can actually document using a specific comment structure at the top of the function that basically describes how the helpers work. So what it does is it just adds functionality for get help. It's really quite useful. What's really handy about that is basically it allows you to add your help. Now you can actually offload all that onto XML, and this is what I kind of want to bring that back to the module. So what you can do is you can have all your commandlets, you can have your corresponding help files actually offloaded into an XML file in a subdirectory or in another directory. So it's worth mentioning. It's always worth mentioning these things, but it's basically we're going to go down and we're going to have a look at it, but it's just something that's worth obviously making sure everyone's kind of across. So once we've done that, do you have any questions?
No, not so far.
Okay, cool. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're actually going to quickly talk about we're going to actually go have a look at some binaries and some actual normal ones, some normal modules. So the easiest module I can always find that basically corresponds to a binary is pretty much anything in. So if we just go get module, let's go list available. Let's see what we got here. So I think the easiest one we can probably work around with is PS Script Analyzer. So what we can do is let's just go get module. We're going to use Pesta and PS Script Analyzer because Pesta is written in I keep forgetting is not a binary. It's a script module. So if we go get module and we go PS Script Analyzer. It also helps if I can spell today. Did I actually spell that correctly? Oh my god, really? Copy, get module. Okay, I'm just going to port that module. Okay, cool. So you actually got to export it. And you see how in here we can actually, I'm just going to go format list. And then we're just going to go star. So that was a bad idea, but you will get the gist. So
There's a lot in there.
There's a lot in there. Interestingly enough, this is signed, so it's actually a good thing. So one of the things you can see here is we've got a PSM1. Oh, interesting. Interesting. This is the thing as I always enjoy when you kind of go poking around inside a PowerShell and you're actually looking under the hood. So it's actually a PSM1. Does it have a PSD? So what we can do. So we're going to have a look at these commandlets here. So what we can do, this is one of ps1.xml. Interesting. Sorry. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to have a look at these. I'm just going to pop that in under a variable. Okay, so we've got 3 commandlets in here. So what we can do is just go have a look at get command. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of wanting to actually look at the underlying code. So if you can use get command, you can actually have a look at the code underlying it. So what we've got here, you can see how it's corresponding to a DLL.
Yep.
So that's basically, obviously, that's the reference DLL there. So what we can actually have a look at is I want to see those, I want to see that DLL being loaded. So we can just actually go browse to this. So what we can do, oh damn it, I don't want that. I just want to go to the pet directory. Microsoft Windows. So if we go and have a look at here, so these are the corresponding DLL. So we got a PS script analyzer DLL. You can see this is actually the module here. So we got PS script analyzer. It's its version, and you can see here we've got our PSM1 file. We've got a PSD file, and then we've got a whole bunch of other stuff in here. So all this other stuff is just basically your C# supporting files. So you've got obviously Newtonsoft, which is serializing and deserializing. We've got a PS script analyzer, a whole bunch of rules and things like that. I'm guessing, and then obviously other things for different rules and settings. So what we can do is we can have a look at PSD, or we have a look at the PSM1 file first. So what we can do is let's just open up this VS Code. Can you see that? Can you see the PS script analyzer.psm1?
In VS Code, yes.
Yep. Okay, cool. So you see here, so basically when we call the module, this is actually what's getting launched initially, and it's signed. And what I mean by signed is that basically this is qualified to run on the all signed script execution policy. So what that basically means is people trust it. It's trusted code. So if I went and modify this code, it actually won't run because this code's actually been signed with certificate, and the private key is basically that the script is this encrypted code. So if I make a change here, this is different than when PowerShell basically runs it. They're different, so it won't run it. So it knows it's not safe. So you can see here it's just checking PowerShell versions. It's looking at the root of the module, regular get command, register argument completer. Interesting. So you can see it's actually, I don't know what's doing there. I'm guessing it's loading. Okay, I think it's registering the I think it's registering the commandlets. Correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn. Get commandlet register. I just don't know what this is. I don't know what that commandlet is. Register argument complete. I might be custom. Do I see it in here? No, I don't. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that just registers your commandlet. Let's get command register argument commandlet. Try to ignore. Yeah, I would say so. That's what it's doing. Anyway, so that's basically a PSM1 file. It's pretty straightforward. So then we're going to have a PSD file. So let's go have a look at that. Let's open that in VS Code. So this is a PSD file. So this is just a configuration that describes what it's doing. So you can see here we've got the author, the PSM1, what version, its minimum version. So you can put a lot of information here. What's actually interesting here is that you got in the PSM1 file, it's looking at all the different versions, and it's basically catering for those different versions. So for example, if you look at the PSM1 file, you can see there if the PS version.major is less than 4, it's going to try and add that specific DLL for Newtonsoft, which is basically a serializer, a JSON serializer, deserializer. So so the minimum version is 3, but obviously it has to cater for different versions because different flavors of PowerShell will have different outcomes. Anyway, if we go back to the PSD file here, and we keep scrolling down, you can see the commandlets to export. So there's basically our commandlets. We've got functions that we need to export. And basically keep going down. We've got private data to pass the module specified. So we can see this just, I'm guessing that's to do with it's something to do with the release. I'm not entirely sure, but as you can see, it's basically it's a configuration. It's really that's what it is. It's just a configuration. If you keep scrolling down, you can see it's signed. It's PSD file is signed. Make change to it, it's not going to run. That's basically a binary module at its heart. Now, what we can do is let's have a look at Pesta, because Pesta is actually a fantastic other example. So let's go find Pesta. Get command invoke Pesta. Now, one of the things that PowerShell does when you start PowerShell up, it actually goes through and loads the stub of every module. From before, register argument completer is a custom tab completion. Ah, okay. I never knew that. That's really cool. Thanks, Glenn. So what I'm doing now is we're going to have a look at the deep dive of Pesta. As you can see, it looks a little different. And
so,
the reason,
Glenn's comment, is that regards to tabbing it out?
Yes.
Okay.
Custom tab for completion. Yes. So as you can see with this example here, we've got the code. So this is basically all PowerShell. Completely different module. This is an actual script module. This is not a binary. So it's all in PowerShell. So you can see in here, you can literally just read it. And this is one of the things I remember doing was with a what was it? Get file hash. I actually rewrote that module. Man, this camera is actually running really slow. Let me just quickly fix that. Get PowerShell module. Oh, sorry. Get file hash. It was running slow, so I actually grabbed its original source code and then I fixed it up. So yeah, you can just search register. There we go. That's better. So really cool. Anyway, so as you can see, this is a binary module. You can see it's quite different. But we're not interested in that. We actually want to have a look at the code under the hood. So what we're going to do is go get, actually, I wanted to see the file path, but we can't do that. So we're going to go get module, Pesta, and then we're going to go format list star. As you can see, this is the PSM1 file in there. I'm looking for my PSM1. Where is it? Module base. Here we go. So what we can do is jump in here. Let's have a look at this bad boy. So here's our PSM1. Let's have a look in Visual Studio Code. And let's scroll down. So as you can see, looks completely different. This is PowerShell. So this is not, and you can see this is a completely different way. They've obviously got a completely different structure, but essentially this is just straight out executable PowerShell. I'm not really going to even try to read this because this is many lines, and I don't really have that much time at the moment. But as you can see here, it's PowerShell. Now, interestingly enough, you can actually, if you scroll down to 699, you can actually see that you can actually start to see the functions in there. So if you go to line 669, sorry. Just let me know when you're there.
Yeah, I've got it set to follow you. So.
Okay, sweet. So you can see you've got invoke Pesta here. Invoke Pesta is like the default commandlet. So when you actually want to start your tests, as you can see here, this is actually a really good example of what I was talking about. Is the get help based documentation that you can put inside your functions. So there's your function, and this is your get help. So you can see here, if I go get invoke Pesta, you can see the synopsis, the description, and it's just abbreviated by the dot and then the help heading. So the synopsis, the description, in this instance, then we have a parameter, and then basically we have a script. So what it's basically saying is for the script parameter, this is a documentation surrounding that. Then you've got the parameter test name, parameter enable exit, output file, output format, tag. You can see it keeps going through. Code coverage. I think that's like the most hated one because you run it and then you're like, you don't meet code coverage. Have an issue that you might be able to help me with. Been Googling for this last 27 hours. No worries, just chuck it in the chat and we'll see if we can help. So then obviously we keep going down, and then we have examples. So you can see here again, this is how you lay out your examples. So you know how if we do if we go back up here and we just go in the terminal, we go, let's just go get help, and we go invoke pester, and we just go examples. This data, this configuration help is what's actually powering this. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. So basically, you have your example, and then from that, you would pretty much, yeah, you could just keep adding your examples. It's fairly self-explanatory. Obviously, there's a lot of examples. Now we get to the good stuff. We talked about parameter sets and parameters. So remember how we talked about parameters?
Yes.
So basically parameters, so if you got your script parameter, so if we just go invoke, let's just go invoke pester, we're not going to hit it. And then we have all our parameters here. That's defined by the parameter block, and it's defined by this. So basically we can say this is a position of 0, it's mandatory is equal to 0. I've never seen that before. It's either I've always used mandatory equals true or false, but now I've just been told to actually admit it. So if it's mandatory, realistically, I only need to do this, and that's it. That's what I do now. Okay. All of a sudden, Windows Defender scan only lasts 5 seconds. It scans 43 cells. And tamper protection was mysteriously dead. You might have something on your computer. What I recommend is if you're running 10, is to do a refresh. So hit start, type in refresh this PC, and then follow the prompts. Usually if you got something that's kind of, usually when it's something like that's intentional, it's usually something is trying to actually make it happen. So think of it as a program is, the way I always think of it is if something is causing it to stop, it's either to do with a failure, so something's broken. So first thing I would check is the Microsoft event logs. So check the system log, check the application log. If there's a Windows Defender log, check that. If there's nothing in there, I would assume that it's intentional, and then basically I would do a refresh. So if you go start, refresh, I'll reset this PC, that'll be a refresh component, and then basically you can just rebuild Windows. The refresh won't delete your files or folders, where Windows, if you do a full reset, it will. So that's a quick and dirty way without having to go and grab a CD. So give that a shot.
I'm just gonna chuck a link in the chat for you.
Okay. Yeah, cool. That'll work. Thanks, mate. So that's basically that's basically the easiest way to do. They're really the two differences. So, do you have any questions?
No, actually,
Okay.
It's been fairly straightforward so far.
Yeah. So as you can see, commandlets are denoted by functions, and the way that they do that is there's a if I can find the commandlet, there's a commandlet called export module member. And basically what it does is it just tells PowerShell, hey, I'm a commandlet, treat me as a commandlet. And that's basically it. Like, it's technically a function. And to be honest, you could run it and it's callable as a function, but basically, yeah. Off topic, wondering if mandatory is there as an LPS. I have no idea. I've never used it. I think if the author of Pest, that's actually an interesting thing. If the author of Pest would be able to help out, maybe like jump on and say, hey, nah, it's because of this. I'll be like, oh, okay, that's cool. Anyway, so that's basically, there's the two differences. Fantastic. So what we're going to do now is we're going to write a quick module. So we're going to call this module Hello World. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to create a module. But before we do that, sorry, I'm just looking at time. I'm just got to make sure we're keeping my demos and my lectures at the. Sorry, I'm just kind of rambling. I need to keep this theory under check. So one of the things I want to talk to about is regards to is code architecture. So the biggest thing that I've personally found from the get-go is when you write a module, the more complicated it is. So you're like, yeah, I just want to write a module for blah. The more that you try and go down that path, and you'd be like, yeah, I'm just going to get stuck right into it, bam, bam, bam. You kind of start going down a rabbit hole, and then it gets very, 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 very sticky. And then you're trying to clean it up underneath, and you start accumulating technical debt. So it's really, really important to think about what you do firstly before actually doing it.
Oh, don't encourage him, Shane, please.
So I'm going to be using Paint as my trusty tool. So you're probably just going to have a quick look at the screen.
Yep.
So let's use, for example, let's use our remote execution bot, for example, as an example. So with a remote execution bot, we had an underlying REST framework that was basically talking to different things. Essentially, that's what it was doing. So basically, what we would have done is essentially most people would have wrote their modules. You got your commandlet, like so. I'm just going to have our fork commandlets, which was, I can't even remember. Actually, I think there was two. There was two commandlets. Let's just say there's two. It makes it up. That's not delete. That's delete. So let's say there's two commandlets. We have get and set. Oh no, invoke and I think it was invoke and get. I can't remember what it was. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So basically, the premise here is that basically what we would have done initially is we would have wrote those, and we did it. We wrote those two commandlets to basically independently of each other. But if we wanted this to be a little bit more full-featured, now at the moment, at that point in time, it's fine. Like they can be independent of each other because there's not really much moving parts in terms of they're two commandlets. But let's say we had a whole suite. So let's say we had a full-on admin management one, and you know the commandlets started to add up. And so let's say we doubled it, and we had 6. Now we've got a problem because there's now potential for random things happening. And so those random things that can happen, especially with REST, apply to all 6 of them. They don't apply just to 1 or 2, they apply to all 6. Or there might be an intermittent issue with 2 of them, but they still apply to all 6. It will apply to 2, therefore it should apply to all 6. So you're probably going to already know what I'm getting at here is that basically when we're building a module, we really got to be thinking about the framework that we're building it on. So I'm going to use this as an example with my recent talk with regards to my Desire to Learn PowerShell module. It's built on multiple frameworks because it's actually built on multiple levels because there's so much happening that it's simpler from a code perspective to have the code written as a generic function, which then the parent can call. So what I mean by that is, we're going to just quickly architect this here from this perspective. So we have our, I'm just going to move that screen so everyone can see my full paint. We have our, we'll just use, I think it was 4. Then we're just going to use 3. I'm not going to go to the 4th because the 4th just makes things overly complicated. We have 3. So the top level would be your commandlets. Any get, all your gets, your sets, you invoke, all that kind of jazz. It's all on the top level. And then the next level underneath that actually, now this is written for PowerShell 5, so it doesn't have some of the goodies for 6, was my REST handler. So the REST handler was responsible for constructing the URI fully. So the commandlet, so let's say for example let's just use Active Directory for example. Let's say you have get AD user. Now in a REST format that would correspond to a URI. So the commandlet would basically send the route, what we call the route. So the route is basically just the URL path to the handler. And then the handler basically would take that route, take the data that it got given. So, and essentially, it's just the REST data that invoke REST method would use, but it basically constructs the URI, basically handles the token. So it would, do all the extra stuff that the commandlet doesn't need to do. And the reason why you do this is because when it comes to building a commandlet, you don't have to deal with the shenanigans of all that. You only need to focus on writing the essential components for the commandlet. So the commandlet can only be 100 lines long. It doesn't need to do much. It only needs to provide the functionality, and then the rest of it's actually offloaded into the handler. And then basically the handler will do all the heavy lifting. It will basically do the retries. It will handle all the errors. It'll do reauthentication if there's a token failure. So now, if you think about that, and let's say you have to have that for 30 commandlets, well, then your code's just blown out 30 times. So that's the reason why you have to kind of think about how you architect your modules. So in terms of structuring it, you want to kind of structure it to a framework of reusability, and that so that if, like, let's say you got two completely separate modules that don't, commandlets that don't do something. So for example, invoke pester and describe. Technically, describe is a commandlet, and it is and it's just PowerShell. It's just a commandlet, and then it just accepts the script block. But basically, describe and invoke pester are completely different. So yes, they do have differences, but any sort of similarities that they do have, the architecture would basically support, the reuse of reusable code. So it's all about kind of trying to reuse your code. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Okay. The biggest thing with this, for example, with our within the D2L module, is that it actually had to go even deeper. I actually had to add another two, but we're going to talk about the third level. The third level was basically my PowerShell classes. And this basically was responsible, so the classes themselves were responsible for maintaining the token information. So for example, if there was a token expiry, the handler would be able to handle it, but then the class underneath it would actually be able to renew that token, or reauth, or do whatever it needed to do to be able to maintain the session. So the handler itself is not even responsible for that, because that actually blows it out even further. But the reason why it did it this way was because this is kind of comes to my talk that I submitted about PowerShell is the Wild West, or PowerShell is the Wild Rest. Dad joke. Anyway, basically, rest is anyway, I just completely stuffed that up. Anyway, so the reason why it was really important this way was because basically D2L had two different authentication schemes. So it had a traditional, what we call OAuth, which is basically pretty much the standard for any sort of REST API, any sort of REST API authentication. That's like the standard go-to. Whereas it had its own called Valance, and Valance was basically essentially it was a URL-based authentication with a lot of fancy stuff behind it. But so the way this module had to work was, if you had OAuth, it would renew an OAuth token, but if you had Valance, it would have to go get a new Valance token. So this is the reason why the class was so important, because the handler didn't need to handle that. It just needed the class to do that. So that's what the class did. So anyway, that's basically code architecture 101. Reusability is the big thing. So write your code to be reusable. And basically the other thing that's really important is writing your code to be testable. And this is something that I've been learning a lot about lately. And that's basically writing your code so that when you can test it, you don't have to mocking is much easier. So you don't have to so when you're doing a unit test, you're not having to play games. So basically simplifying your code as much as possible. Everything should be inside a function with, I'd say, with 100 lines or less, but that's what it's pretty hard to do that in PowerShell. So but basically everything is to be able to be basically placed inside a function, and to be able to be easily mocked and to be able to easily write a unit test for that. That's easily readable. Yeah, Glenn will be able to elaborate more on that than I am. I'm new to the whole game, but at the same time, though, I understand why now. More and more each day I do it, I'm like, that's why we do things like that. Anyway, so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to build a quick little mini module. You're going to drive as well, so that's going to be you're going to be doing that. I'm just going to increase the brightness because it's getting dark here. Exposure. There we go. Alrighty, so what we're going to do here is we're just going to smash out a mini module. So first thing we're going to do is, okay, what do you think the first thing we're going to do is?
Declare what the module is.
Well, we're going to need to create a PSM file. So that's the first thing we're going to do. So what we're going to do is I'm going to create a PSM file because that was something that I kind of thought about and I was like, I should have created a PSM file. So we're going to call this test.psm1. Pretty straightforward. So you should see a test.psm1. Yep, sweet, good. So we have a PowerShell module. So I'm just going to write now PowerShell module exactly the same as a script. So I'm just turning a fan on. Exactly the same as a script. So same sort of execution. Nothing's changed. So PowerShell module. So what we're going to do is we're going to write our function. So we're going to write our function. We're going to write our commandlet. And we're going to write. All right. So basically we've got our PowerShell module and we've got our commandlet. So what we're going to do is write our function. And we're going to call this get write host message. And inside here, we're going to put a parameter. And we're going to call this PARAM. Yep. We're going to call this message. Now, we're just going to make this, we're going to kind of refactor our code. So we're going to basically just get it working and then we're going to refactor it. And then we're going to, yeah, so we're going to kind of go through a bit of a process here. So what I want you to do, Christian, is I want you to write, I just want you to write some code in there to do with message. So it needs to do something with write host. So you can just do a write host with something. So
it's just message equals.
Use message as a variable. So just print out what's in message. I'm just checking stocks while you. Yep.
So I don't need to call message again?
No, so what I mean is use call write host and then just pass message through and then like put something fancy around it. Because message is a variable.
Like that?
Yep, that's fine. You can I want you to set the color of the text to be cyan. All right, sweet. So what we need to do now is we've got our message. So we can actually test this code quickly. So what we can do is just F8. So I'm just F8'd it. So if we go get write host message, and then you can see that, why is that not working? Oh, it helps if I actually learn how to spell. So if we recall that, and we go get write host message, and then we go message, and we can say meh. You can see it prints meh. It's pretty straightforward. But we want to make it a module. So one of the things we need to do within a script module is we need to use the commandlet called export module. I said it before, and then I've kind of forgot about it. Export module member. That's it. And so what we can do here is we can go function, and then we can go get write host message. oh sorry, function get right host message, like so. Pretty cool. And so what that does is that basically will tell it to be, hey, I'm a module. I'm a commandlet. I'm a function commandlet. Now, what's really cool is that now we've got that going, we can basically do some cool things. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to import this module. So this is kind of the thing. You can't run export module member inside a normal PowerShell script. It won't work. You only can run it inside an import. So what commandlet do you think we're going to run to basically import this module?
Import module.
Okay, I'm going to get you to drive, and we're going to learn a little bit about import module. So while we're doing this, so you can jump on and drive with import module down in the console.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do here is, so you can import modules a couple of ways. So the traditional way is you just import module pester. Most people will do that. The reason why that works is because the modules get installed into predefined locations in PowerShell. PowerShell realizes those locations and by default loads them. That's simply how it works. You can just put a thing in there and it'll work, because when PowerShell loads, it basically preloads the stubs into the stubs of the modules into memory, and then when you actually go to do something, it'll just work. If it's outside that, we actually have to specify the path. So what we're going to need to do here is if you basically go, I think I can't actually remember what the thing is. I actually don't know what the parameter is, which is terrible. I'm going to need to work out the parameter. So if we specify the path, so if we go d.temp, test.psm1, and we hit enter, we've now imported that module. Nothing's happened. Doesn't look like anything's happened. But stuff has gone down. Things have gone down. Things have just gotten real. Now, I've called this into memory, but the module should be there as well. So if I do a get module, and what's the module called? Test.
The module, yeah.
The module's called test. There it is. And there's our exported command. So if I actually get command and get right host message, and then we can actually do a format list, you can see there's our code. It's actually, you can see a script block. That's actually the code that it's loaded into memory.
Okay. I just sent you the link for the import module parameters.
On Discord?
Yeah.
Chuck it on in Twitch. Yeah, chuck it in Twitch. Everyone can see it. It's always good. That's basically import module. Now, one of the cool things about import module is you don't have to import the entire module. So there's kind of always a preconception that module loading is slow, and the reason why it's slow because it's got to load all the commandlets. That's true, but there is an ability, so you can go import module, and then we can go we can actually specify the commandlets that we want to load, and it'll distinctively it will load only those commandlets. Straightforward, very easy. Cool. That's basically that. Now it's time to refactor our code. So what we're going to do beforehand is if we do get help, and then we're going to get right host message, you can see there, it's absolutely nothing there. It's pretty shonky. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to fill that out, and we're actually going to do different things with it. We're going to make it an advanced commandlet, so we can see right verbose information, and we're going to see a little bit of other cool things. So the way we're going to do that is, first thing is we're going to actually add some documentation. So I'm going to get you to drive. I'm going to get you to create a script block. And while you're doing that,
Script block or comment block?
a comment block, sorry. While you're doing that, I am just going to go grab. Are you following me? Are you following me? Are you?
Not anymore.
Okay, cool. I'm just going to grab Pester's one because it's nice and handy. And I honestly, like, I do this so much and I don't remember it. So just go all the way down to an example. Perfect. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do this. And then I'm going to get rid of
Uh-huh.
all this
I-
trash. Oh, sorry, it's actually not trash because Pesta's awesome. I love Pesta.
all the superfluous comment.
all of Pesta's stuff, and we're just going to get rid of it. So you can see here, the synopsis is basically a short, distinct synopsis of exactly what's happened. So we're going to basically write some code here. So I'm going to get you to write the comments. I'm going to kind of like sit back and just kind of and then once we've done that, we're going to do something else. We're going to run again, and we're going to do something else, and then we're going to be nearly done. Cool. So, right, so description, literally copy and paste it. You can't write a story where there is none. Let's be honest. You can't write a story when there's none, mate.
I can try, damn it.
You're like, well, this in once upon a time. So basically, yeah, yeah, we're fine. Sorry, I just kind of thought my stream froze for a sec. So yeah. Now the parameter, what would you reckon the parameter, like the message parameter, what would you put in there for that, like that part of it?
That is to actually create the variable, right?
I'll just say
So
that's the
to
message to be
build-
printed. Oh, I just went darker. I'll just say that's the message to be printed. Like something super basic. Camera's getting a little slow. It should be getting any darker now. Worst comes to worst, I'll turn the light on. Actually, I'm going to turn the light on. No, I'm not. That's fine. Message to be printed, and then we've got an example. I want you to write an example.
Okay.
I'll be honest, like it's so, but it's really like if you do it, you learn it, and then you'll like the one thing that you do is when you're writing a function commandlet, this is like your boilerplate code. Like you should be writing, always be having all this information intact from the get-go, because adding it later sucks hard. Because one, you're not in the right state of mind. You can't remember exactly all the functionality, the ins and the outs, and all the things that you need to mention inside the description if it needs to be mentioned. And basically, you get caught out. And so that's why it's really important. And then what I would do here is under example, I'll just go like something like that. Done. So that's basically that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to unload this module. So we've got import, we can unload. So unload. Is it unload? What's the command? Let's discuss. And if I don't know it, what I'm going to do, get command.
You're going to ask Glenn.
I'm just going to go, it's remove module. So if we go remove module, and then we're going to go call test, module's gone. So if we go get module, doesn't exist. It's gone. So what we're going to do now is we're going to re-import that module. So if we go up, 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 re-import it, we should be able to now do a get command. Actually, we should be able to do get help and go get write host message, and we're going to go full, and there's our documentation. So you can see our parameters. Now you can't see examples, so that's specified separately. There's our example. Actually, did that work?
No, it did not. I don't see an example in there.
What did I do wrong?
Did you save it?
Yeah, because we got it out. Let's see if we can. It was set like that. They're like I don't really see it. I'm just gonna remove it, port it. That should work. Why is that not working? What have I missed? I've missed something. Doesn't really matter right at this point because I'm running out of time. I need to be finished very, very soon. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave that for the time being, and we will come back to that if we have time, which I don't think we will. So let's head on. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about advanced commandlets. So basically, advanced commandlets will basically will unlock the full PowerShell parameter suite on it. So it allows you to do verbose, debug, what if, confirm. So what does confirm do? Confirm basically is the high impact. So when we talk about high impact, any sort of change that you want to have. So for example, remove item, anything that basically is going to have a sizable impact will be deemed as a any sort of high impact is considered a confirm action. So what that basically does is inside your code, you can basically say, hey, I'm a confirm item, and it will actually pause execution, and if confirm's not specified, it won't actually make it. It'll actually prompt, and if you say no, the code won't be executed. What if? I've talked about what if a lot. What if is one of the sysadmin's most best friend if used, if specified as well. So sometimes what if is not in the commandlet because it's just not there, and other times it is. So things like set, remove, things like that, what if is really, really handy. And so what if does is the same thing. Inside your code, you can specify within a condition of an if statement to say, hey, the code inside this specific block is what if code. So if the what if parameter is specified, the code doesn't get executed. It basically gets bypassed with a warning written saying I'm performing a specific action. That's what if. Verbose and debug. So I've talked about this a little bit. I'm going to kind of rehash it again. So PowerShell has multiple streams, what we call output streams that you can work with. So this is not the pipeline. This is just different streams. And so, for example, write host technically is an information stream. Information is technically, yeah. But basically, you have multiple streams in PowerShell. You have an information stream, you have an information stream, you have a verbose stream, you have an error stream, you have a debug stream. I think I'm missing one. You might have an output. I don't think so. I think there must be missing some because I feel like I am. But essentially, basically, the premise of this is that information pertaining to each corresponding subject belongs in its own stream. So for example, if you're writing some very verbose information, there's no point writing host. It needs to go inside a write verbose. Now, the premise, the reason why they did it that way is because by default, those verbose, debug, all those kinds of extra streams are omitted unless you explicitly declare it inside your commandlet, or what we call set the preference. So each of the values have what we call a preference. So for example, you have a verbose preference, an information preference, a warning preference. Oh, it's the warning stream. Totally forgot. Yeah, warning. Errors, regardless, will be logged. Oh, sorry, will be printed. By default, they're excluded. You will not see verbose. You won't see debug. That kind of thing. If you want to change it, just set it to continue. That will globally change it for the script or for the current PowerShell session. Now, what's really important about this is that basically you don't need to have that set. In an advanced commandlet, basically you just need to unlock the potential and then PowerShell does it for you. Effectively, when you do it inside the commandlet, it will do the same thing. It'll basically set the information preference to be, the verbose preference to continue. But because it's executed inside the scope of the commandlet, basically once the commandlet has completed the execution and returns back to the parent, then the verbose preference is set back to the previous, which is it inherits from the previous. So the preference would be silently continue. Does that make sense?
I'm just trying to follow it at the moment.
Okay. It's not essential. Like, we're going to talk about streams in PowerShell 101 Live, but it's just something that it's always worth mentioning. And hopefully, if someone caught it, it's good. If someone missed it, it's still all right. We're going to be recovering this. So let's unlock advanced commandlets. So what I'm going to do again, we're going to have a look at a PowerShell binding. And what we're going to do is scroll down. I can never get it right, so it's easier for me to do this way. So to do it, basically above our parameter set, our parameter block, we actually set what we call the commandlet binding. This basically changes the function from a standard function into an advanced function. This adds all that extra PowerShell goodness. This is the confirm, the what if, all that. It's that one line. So what we can do now is to show you this working, we're actually going to do a write host. We're going to do a write verbose, and we're going to say, actually no, we're going to see it as a verbose, and then we're going to do a write debug. So we're going to print the same message out of those different streams. It'll still come out as a write host, but basically we're going to see when we specify the verbose parameter, it's going to come outside it. It'll be printed. There'll be an additional line printed with a verbose stream, and then when we specify the debug, it'll be printed with a debug. The reason why is because if you want verbose information, then you get it. If you want debug information, then you can get it. But you don't you don't want to see it from the get-go because it's just too much. You only want to see what you need to get. So if you're doing a get 80 user, you just want the user. You don't care about all the verboseness. You only care about it when it's not working. So that's the intention of it. So,
did you see Shane's comment about where the example should be?
Yes, it has to be before the param. Has to be. If it's after, it doesn't work. It actually complains. I've had this happen to me before.
Okay.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to go remove module, and we're going to go test. We've unloaded the module. Now, one of the things I quickly want to talk to you about in terms of caveats, in terms of unloading and loading modules. So when you're testing, it's not too bad. You can run it through Pester. The biggest thing you're going to need to worry about when you're doing it, unloading and loading modules, is the commandlet add type. So when you're adding, or PowerShell classes. So when you're adding classes or PowerShell add type, it doesn't unload it, which means, for example, if you have, let's say, you try and add type again. I think it has a fit. I can't remember what it does. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I don't know what add type does, but I know with PowerShell classes, and this is one thing I've got caught out with, if the classes already exist in memory, it won't reload it. So if you've made a change, it won't reload, which means you're running your old class, so you're testing with your old code, and you won't know it until you see it, and then you'll be like, what the hell's going on? The best way to fix that is restart your session. So close and reopen PowerShell. But we're not working with that. We don't need to worry about that tonight. So import module. And then we're going to go, should I just go up. Bam. Okay. So now, if we actually run our get write host message, we're going to get a message, yep, test. It also helps. We've got our cyan. Actually, it's bad because I put it cyan because verbose is cyan. But now if we specify the verbose parameter, you see how it's actually wrote the verbose stream? That's emitted it inside it. But now if I do a quick write verbose, you see how there's no response there if I did a write verbose A? It's because the verbose action preference only exists inside the function. And it only will exist, and the one thing is it will exist inside of any sort of, or will it? Yes, it will. It will exist inside of the following corresponding functions. So what that means is that it will inherit from the parent by default, but because we've explicitly set it here, it overwrites the parent. So if the parent excludes it, but because we've basically said we've put the verbose parameter on it, it's overwritten the default within the code, within the function, executed it, and then returned back. And then basically when it returns back, it's inheriting from the parent. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Let's do the same with debug. We can actually do both. So you can obviously, there you go. It's the exact same process. So that's the reason why they exist. So if I'm writing, for example, I'm going to use a really good example. So most of the people, we go get, let's use invoke web request, okay, as an example, because this is always excellent. Like it's one of the busiest ones I've seen. Invoke web request URI www.google.com. That's a pretty standard response. That's just your PowerShell object. That's a PowerShell object. Output stream. Yes, output. Oh, technically it's pipeline. I'm not sure. Anyway, so now if we whack a verbose on it, we had some. You can see here. You see I'm doing that. I'm receiving payload response. Okay, fantastic. Then if we chuck a debug on it, if it has a debug. Oh, that was boring. That was boring. Fantastic.
Debug.
But the premise, actually, let's just get child item. That's boring. Man, when you see mine, it's like things are happening like crazy and everything's going everywhere, and I'm like, oh, and now mine's like, yeah. See if there's a debug. Okay. Anyway, bad examples.
Still boring.
Yes, it's boring. But basically what the whole premise is if you want to print out debugging information, or you want to get like down to earth information about what the action is doing, what's going on with it, you use those streams. You don't just print it out and write host. The premise of write host shouldn't even exist. You shouldn't be using write host at all. Realistically, if you're wanting to do that, use write. If you're wanting to write information to the screen, you use write information. Or, which is by default, by the way, is omitted. It's not there. If you basically want to print if you want to print something for, like you don't need to, like the intention is the code just, if as long as the code's working, it doesn't need to do anything. And the intention of the code is to produce an output, an object output. So if the object is coming back as a PS object, that's all you need. You don't need to see all the inner workings. Like we're not trying to be Linux here. Where you see, the bootstrap loader and all this. We just want to see it work. We just want an output. We don't want to see all the inner workings unless we need to. And then when we specify it, then we get the output. I think that's pretty much that, actually. Any questions?
Would you use write output instead of write host?
Correct. Yes, I would use write output. If
Okay.
I'm actually doing something, it's especially... Sorry?
Does it have the same result?
No. Write output is technically the difference between write output and write host is write host is writing to an output stream. But it's writing to a stream, but PowerShell doesn't pass it in the pipeline. So for example, if you wanted to, let's say you had this commandlet and you wanted to pipe it to a following commandlet, it would not work because write host doesn't do that. You need to use write output because write output returns the output into the actual pipeline. So write output is preferred.
Okay.
Alternatively, you can use return. Now, the difference between return and write output that I know of is it comes down to sub-expressions, but that's something that you don't really need to worry about in functions. Functions are not really that much of a concern. They both, like I've tested it, they both behave the same in terms of functionality. So you can use return or write output. They're both the same. So one of the things I do want to mention with write output, okay, this is the equivalent to a write output. Anything that returns a value, so right now it'll be write host. Technically, that's a write output. That would be pipeable into that is pipeable into the pipeline. And what that means is that people will be like, I'm writing code, blah blah blah, and let's say both of them return values. You've got now two write outputs, and then things are happening. So it's really important to, like when I'm writing a function, I make sure that anything that I do not want to have returned to the pipeline. So for example, let's say we don't want that to return to the pipeline. I'm going to denote it by a string, or I'm just going to say it's null. You can do it null like so, or you can say out null. like so. But the intention is you do not want to return that, therefore omit it. Sorry, exclude it. So that's something that's really important to know. And I actually think I'm going to put that in assessment for PowerShell 101 Live, because I think that is something that's really important to understand. And it's tripped me up. So it's not something that, I'm preaching because I know I've lived the lesson. Why the hell is this not working? I spent ages troubleshooting it. Anyway, any more questions?
No, that about covers it.
Questions online? Okay, I don't think so. That's fine. I think people are just kind of having it in the background, which is fine. All right, so I think that is going to be it for today and it for PowerShell 101 with Michael and Christian, which is, it's a bit sad. we had a really good run about the we had a really good run about it. Could you repeat the stuff about the things?
Do you mean the whole lot?
Yeah, can you just like repeat yourself in total? I'm like, wait for the replay.
Just sum it up in 5 minutes, Michael.
Sum it up in 5 minutes. Yeah. So is that a yes that you want me to repeat about write output? Is that a yes you want me to repeat about the entire thing?
Or are you just trolling us, Shane?
Oh, he's trolling me, hanging me on. I'm like, I kind of need to go downstairs and cook dinner soon. All of it. Stuff that. Nah, watch the replay. It's nice knowing you, Shane. See ya. So I think basically, yeah. So we are for so we're going to be PowerShell 101 with Michael and Christian is going away. This is the very last session, so it's a bit sad. But this Saturday it kicks off. Basically Saturday we will be doing PowerShell 101 live. That's where they're basically I'm moving my stream to Saturday, one because I've got my wife is going back to work from maternity leave, and two, I need to have at least Tuesdays free to do other things for planning. So that's all right, Anthony. Remember, mate, everything is going to be pre-recorded. So we're going to be super I'm going to be super anal about it. But basically, you can just watch it. It's only going to be I'm going to try and make it as short as possible. So it's going to be about a 2-hour session. There's about 12 weeks worth of content that we're going to be covering. That's a lot, but it's also succinct enough for you guys to be able to kind of hit the ground running. I kind of had so one of the things that we're going to be doing is it's going to be done over Discord. We're basically going to be using PS Live, exactly what we're going to be doing here. There's going to be slides, there's going to be fireworks. No, there's not going to be fireworks because that's like dangerous and yeah, I don't want to.
Maybe that can be the end goal is
yeah.
Make a animation in PowerShell.
Fireworks, yeah, that should be an assessment. I'll enjoy that. Anyway, so basically, yeah, PowerShell Live on Saturday at 0900 Australian Eastern Standard Time. That is 7 o'clock for Glenn. I have no idea what that's for you. For you, Shane, I think that's like the middle of the night.
It's 2300 UTC.
Yeah, it's gonna be, yeah, but it's gonna be good. Like I think there's gonna be a lot of positive outcome from it, and the main thing is basically to pass on that knowledge. So yeah, Christian, I was gonna ask, did you have a chat with old mate regarding your thingy PS Summit?
No, I never got the chance to. He had to bail fairly early, so that's okay, Shane. We forgive
Yeah, no
you.
worries, mate. No worries.
And yeah, I just said I'd flick him an email about it.
Yep. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, because then we can get you I'll see if we can get that on ramp. I'm hoping that I can get my talk accepted because I really like. I've got this. I have to show you, man. I have to show you. I've got this. I really want to wear this hat for my like I really want to get one of these hats for my Rest is the Wild West. I'll be like, they'll be like, oh, they'll be like, that's the PowerShell guy with the giant hat.
I don't think you need to be known for anything more.
Just be like, oh god. Or I get like 50 of them and give them away for prizes, and imagine how many people it like annoys in terms of you got this guy wearing this giant hat and he can't see the screen. They see this giant hat.
Anyone with a giant hat now has to sit up the back. You brought this on yourself.
Yeah, and then some guys like, he's a freaking some bastard from brought a whole bunch of giant hats, and it'd be like, oh, like, and then on the hat it could be like, I survived PS Summit.
That'd be beautiful.
Yeah. Anyway, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, man. I think what we might do is occasionally we might do a catch up. It might be on another day or something like that. When we're not kind of doing anything, and we can kind of just have a bit of a quick 30-minute here and tell a quick show and tell what you've been doing, things like that, and we can kind of just squeeze something in for 15-20 minutes. But I think, yeah, officially it's finished. It's a bit sad. I actually think this really kind of kicked this channel off. So PS Live Saturdays. Hope you guys can make it. If not, it's all right. Obviously replayable. Everything's streamed. Yeah, and yeah. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. And
me.
and Christian. So yeah, bye for now, and see you guys on Saturday.
Or whenever we see you.
Yep. Arrivederci.